This film is called Chef. I myself have watched this film 3 times over and over again, because it is very inspiring. And for those of you who like to cook or maybe like watching the movie Master Chef America, maybe you guys will also really like this film. Okay, the main character of this film is named Chef Carl Casper. He is a famous chef and has worked in a famous restaurant for more than 10 years, and almost everyone knows the name Carl, because his famous cuisine is very good. You could say he spent his entire life in the kitchen with his 2 assistant chefs named Martin and Tony. They are both very loyal kitchen partners towards Carl. Because his whole life has been spent in the kitchen, he has lost other important things in his life, his family, his wife, and even his own happiness. Carl has divorced with his wife and he doesn't really know his own son. And even Carl doesn't know what can actually make him happy. Long story short, that night, there will be a food critic from a well-known media, who will come and will criticize the menu and cuisine at the restaurant where Carl works. Carl has prepared everything, and he is already convinced of the new menu, which is super delicious. But right in the middle of preparations, the restaurant owner named Riva came to the kitchen and told Carl not to change the menu for tonight. He told Carl to keep cooking the same menu that is served in the restaurant every day, because the restaurant owner thought that it was the famous menu in the restaurant. But Carl has a different opinion. He feels that the menu has been served at the restaurant for more than 10 years every day, and the food critic has also tasted the menu before. So Carl felt that he had to make something new that was different from the previous one, and of course the previous night Carl had tried, and managed to make a really delicious menu. But the debate between Carl as the chef, and Riva as the restaurant owner, ended with the decision still in the hands of Riva as the owner, and Carl that night had to keep serving the same food menu. Long story short, there came the food critic, named Ramsey. His full name is Ramsey Michel. Let's just call him Ramsey, and he tried the food. Then, Ramsey wrote in various media such as websites, blogs, Twitter and other culinary media, that the food that Carl cooked that night was not good. The chocolate isn't melted, it's boring, and the menu is the same as what the critic had eaten 10 years ago. Reading Ramsey's writing, Carl immediately became down, because he had dedicated his whole life as a chef, but it turned out that his cooking was disappointing. Then, Chef Carl doesn't sleep and doesn't come home. He spends the whole night cooking and trying to make new dishes as good as possible. Without realizing it, it was already morning. Martin and Tony, the assistant chef, who had just come into the kitchen, immediately tried Chef Carl's new dish. They were all surprised, because it was so delicious. Carl's 2 assistants said that the criticism from the food critic yesterday had become a trending topic on Twitter now. But, because Chef Carl doesn't have Twitter, and doesn't know what Twitter is, he disregarded it. Then at night, after coming home from work, Carl was at home with his son, Percy. Carl then asked his son to create a Twitter account and taught him how to use it. Then when they just opened Twitter, they were both surprised, because there were so many comments about Chef Carl's cooking in the article, written by the food critic Ramsey. There were a lot of ugly and insulting comments. Carl also finally challenged Ramsey to come back tonight to his restaurant, and he would cook the best dish. As a result, there are also many people who retweet on Twitter, and it becomes a trending topic. Finally, the restaurant was full at night. Many people booked a table. That night became the busiest night of the restaurant, as long as the restaurant was standing. Now, Carl has prepared the menu for the most delicious dishes. In the middle of preparing, again Riva, the restaurant owner, said that Carl must cook the same menu as usual, and it can't be changed at all. Carl was surprised, because everyone who came to the restaurant that night was because of him and Ramsey's match, but he couldn't cook it himself. An argument ensued and Carl finally came out of the kitchen and stopped working. But, when Carl asked his 2 loyal assistants, Tony and Martin, to quit too, unfortunately, the 2 people who were most loyal to Carl so far, chose to stay at the restaurant, and Carl finally quit alone. Ramsey, who was ready to try Carl's new dish, came, but instead he was served on the same dish as yesterday, and he didn't see Carl at all in the kitchen. In the end, Ramsey wrote on Twitter that Carl was afraid to compete with him and assumed he is a coward. When Carl just got home and he read Ramsey's Twitter, Carl finally got emotional. He went back to the restaurant and got angry, then he made a mess in the restaurant. There were many visitors who recorded it, and the video went viral. Carl's reputation was destroyed. After leaving the restaurant, he didn't get any job offers from any restaurant, and he's unemployed now. He was offered by an agent, to be the main chef on the TV show Hell's Kitchen. Maybe you all already know. Well, according to the agent, Hell's Kitchen matches the way Carl was angry yesterday, but Carl doesn't want to and refuses the offer. Carl too was also offered by his ex-wife to open a food truck, but he rejected. Basically, he just wants to work in a restaurant and doesn't want to go anywhere else. Here, his ex-wife's name is Inez, and his son's name is Percy. Okay, long story short, Inez and Percy want to go to Miami. Inez asks Carl to come. Then Carl will be paid by Inez there to work. He's just told to take care of his own child. Because Inez has worked there and doesn't have time to take care of Percy. There, for the first time, Percy felt like he was on vacation with his whole family. It was the first time Percy saw another side of Carl, like Carl's dance and so on. Time passed, and Carl began to contemplate why he didn't just accept the offer from Inez to open a food truck, and everything was also funded by Inez. Carl finally agreed, and the truck came. But the condition of the truck is really bad. Maybe it's because from a used car. Long story short, Carl and his son cleaned everything together. After everything was clean and in order, Carl thought that he would have a hard time cooking in the kitchen alone, only with Percy's help. Suddenly, Martin, one of his former assistants in the kitchen, said he wanted to join Carl's food truck because he was fed up with Riva's restaurant. And yes, the three of them started to open their food truck right away. With its customers, mainly the construction workers around the place. In this film, what I like is that there are so many lessons from a chef who devoted his life only to cook. Many words from Carl that are really meaningful, like when he teaches his son how to bake bread. Carl said your whole life is now in the bread and the grill. If your grill is messed up, then your whole world will also be messed up. There I really learned about the meaning of focus and totality. Carl also taught that food that is not perfect means that it is inappropriate to give it to other people. Even Carl allowed his 10-year-old son to drink beer, crazy. But because the beer tasted bad, Percy threw up, and threw the beer bottle himself. Then Carl said that now you know the taste of the beer. So from now on if a friend offers you beer, you already know what to do. Okay, let's continue with the story. The journey for the food truck continue. The truck stops from city to city, and opens at any place where the truck stops. Every time it stops in a different city, the menu will also be different. But Carl feels strange. Why is it that every time it opens, it's always crowded and people are waiting in line? Even though he just parked the car. It turns out that during his journey, his son Percy always uploads photos to social media to promote his food truck. As a result, the food truck from Chef Carl, whose video was angry at the restaurant earlier, went viral and everyone wanted to try the food truck's cooking. Carl was surprised that his son was good at marketing. Day after day passed, and his son asked Carl for permission to make a video of 1 second every day. Or what is commonly called 1 second every day. Which would later be combined and become a video of long memories. Then, after a long journey from Miami, and getting close to his house, Carl told his son that the school holidays would be over soon, and the two of them would return to their respective lives. Percy will be busy with school, and Carl will be busy running the food truck. But Percy was crying, because he didn't want to be separated, and still wanted to help his father, every Sunday or every school holiday. But because Carl didn't allow it, Percy, who from a young age never felt that close to his father, now has to be separated again. He cries but still accepts his father's decision. When Carl got home, he was contemplating and feeling lonely again after being separated from his son. Then not long after, his son emailed Carl the video from his 1 second every day. Carl watched all the memories with his son, while being deeply touched. Carl finally changed his mind and called his son Percy. He said to his son that he could help Carl every weekend, or every school holiday. Then Inez, his ex-wife, also seems to have stopped working, and is now helping work at the food truck as a waitress. Not long while they were all working, suddenly, Ramsey Michelle came. The food critic who had an argument with him in the past. The two of them then chat, and Ramsey explained that all the insults from Ramsey before were just job demands. In order to be popular, the media online needs something that can go viral. But Ramsey didn't really mean to insult Carl, because he thought it was all just joking, and shouting replies, and retweets on Twitter. Ramsey didn't think that Carl would be really angry. Now Ramsey has just sold his culinary website and just got a lot of money. He has also bought a restaurant and he asked Carl to be the chef in that restaurant. Of course, different from Riva, the previous owner of the restaurant. Ramsay allows Chef Carl to cook whatever he wants and likes. At the end of the movie, it ends with Chef Carl and Inez reconcile and remarry. Finally, Carl, Inez, and Percy, the three of them can live happily together again.